everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Bright Side of Life. I am your host, Melissa Bright, and today I am talking to someone that I am very, very excited to hear his story. I have been following him on Instagram and TikTok for a while, and everything he talks about has always just hit home for me, and I wanted to have a conversation with him. So today I am talking to Gage Terry, and he is only 23 years old, but has gone through a lot in his short 23 years. And Gage says in his bio that he grew up being overweight, surrounded by a lot of drama, had an alcoholic father and a drug addicted mom for a while, and he was just lost beyond belief. But within a span of a couple of years, he was able to put his life back together in a way he never believed possible. And now his parents are currently sober and their relationships are just getting better and better. So, Gage, welcome to the Bright Side of Life podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I ain't gonna lie, that intro, hearing that read back to me, I got cold chills. I ain't even gonna lie. I've never, I remember writing it, or typing it out, but when you read that back to me, I got cold chills. I was like, yo, that sounds crazy. Oh my gosh, but I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
It's crazy to hear sometimes, like, when you read your life in like 3 sentences or 4 sentences, and you're like, oh, shit, that is my life. Okay, yep, I gotta own it now. It's out there in the ether.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was sitting there listening to that. I was like, bro, you really have been through the ringer, haven't you? It's like, oh my goodness, you know it for yourself, but whenever someone else is like saying it to you, it's like, nah, whoa, like it's heavy. It's heavy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I want to say a couple of things first of all. So one, I'm so excited to talk to you just because of your accent. Love your accent. Where are you from in Tennessee?
I'm from the Tri-Cities, so it's like Eastern Tennessee, Johnson City,
Okay.
Bristol, Kingsport area.
Okay.
So it's Eastern Tennessee.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how I always like to tell people how I discovered my guests, and I seek out people that I want to have genuine conversations with. I don't bring on people just to bring them on, just to fill in the podcast interview, just to have one. And I came across Gage's TikTok first, and his content is absolutely incredible. He is always talking about thought-provoking stuff around mental health or trauma or healing or everyday stuff that people are going through. And I just literally got done telling him that me as a 36-year-old woman getting something out of a 23-year-old guy's like content, that's huge. Like, I would take that as a compliment. It just shows how relatable he is. And if that doesn't prove anything, well, he has. And I don't even know if you've done this math, but between TikTok and Instagram, you have over 800,000 followers, almost a million.
Yeah. I haven't done the math evidently because, like I said, hearing it, actually, like you can or not even conceptualize it, but like understand it in your brain that, oh look, a big number, but like it's gonna be insane one day to see even just like a couple hundred people in front of me if I ever end up speaking, like to see just a couple hundred people in front of me and to realize that every single number on the followers like list, I guess,
Yeah.
is an actual human being.
Yep.
So I try not to focus on that, but also it's crazy to even comprehend that there's
Right.
that many people that actually listen to words. I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy, honestly.
Yeah, it is so awesome. So, okay, let's go ahead and get into a little bit of your story. And P.S., if you ever do want to talk onto a stage, you better stay right now. Like, speak it into existence. You say, when I am talking on stages.
Okay, okay, I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I'm trying.
Yeah. Okay, so I know I mentioned briefly how life was like growing up, but if you can just tell me briefly who were you when you were younger? What were you like? Were you liked outdoors, or yeah, if you can just paint that picture for us.
Um, if I can be honest, it's something I've been trying to think about over the past probably couple months. I I'll be honest, I don't remember a lot of my childhood. Like I remember bits and pieces. And I've
Mhm.
seen a video somewhere like if you have bad memory, you have PTSD. I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense, but I just don't remember a lot. I remember bits and pieces, and the bits and pieces I remember is I liked football. I liked sports, trying to be involved in sports. And I would love to, like, I would like to say I was introverted, but I had friends. Like, I talked to people in school. I enjoyed school, honestly. I liked school to an extent. I would say overall, I'm probably just introverted in the sense of like I didn't like people coming home. Like
Yeah.
I didn't hang out with a lot of friends outside of my house. I didn't hang out with friends. I didn't bring them home to my house. So it was pretty lonely for the most part. Other than that, like there wasn't a lot. Like there was moments, but I don't remember a lot of happy moments. And it sucks because I know there was more than what I am leading on, but
Right.
uh, when there's a lot of bad that happens, you start to kind of focus more on that than you do any good moments that you had before. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little hard to explain. I just don't remember a lot uh, about my childhood, just bits and pieces, really.
Yeah. So I am in no way a therapist, but when I started my therapy last year, I my therapist told me along the same lines of as you were kind of talking about. And I did grow up with an alcoholic mother and drugs. She actually was a nurse and got caught stealing painkillers because of her addiction, and she had to go. She was forced to go to rehab to get better. So I was not aware of this because I was so young. But my therapist says that a lot of times, if we don't have memories of our childhood, it is because of traumatic events. And that's literally our brain protecting us. So we are not constantly having this in our memory, you know?
Yeah,
Um, and so that would make sense for you if you don't remember a lot of it. Um,
I mean, like I know I played football. Like I was involved in sports. I played football. I played basketball. Uh, Are we talking about like early childhood or like?
whenever you want to
Okay.
talk about, yeah,
Well, I like sports. I loved watching football. Outdoorsy, not so much, but I did later in high school. I did. So this is not even like 5 years ago, but I did start to really love hanging out with my friends outside of my house.
yeah,
But in school, I had friends. I enjoyed. I made good grades. I liked making good grades. For a while, it was because it was kind of like it was expected from my parents in a way, but then they just stopped caring. Honestly, they just stopped caring. But I still, I guess, held the standard. I don't really know how to explain that, but I enjoyed making good grades. It made me feel good.
yeah,
But other than that, like I don't exactly know who I was like when I was a child.
right,
I liked playing video games. There's only little things that I remember liking. I don't
yeah,
know exactly what I was back then. I was kind of a mediator, if you will, between family members. Late in middle school, and then pretty much all through high school.
yeah.
So I didn't have hobbies. I had problems. That's about it. That's what I remember.
Yeah. So we obviously know what a mediator is, but can you kind of go into detail like what that meant for you and like what that entailed?
Well, early. I'm trying to remember pinpoint an exact moment. Probably early high school is when things kind of got severe in regards to just my family overall. But early in high school is when I started to really get some courage, get some balls, if you will, like honestly, and kind of not talk back, but stand up for
Yeah.
myself. And because before it was kind of just I would be agreeable just for the sake of no arguing. I'm like, I do not want to have this conversation because with my dad, I was talking to a brick wall essentially, like no comprehension whatsoever or recollection of anything that has
Mhm.
happened. So for the most part, I was going between parents. My parents were divorced at a very young age for me, so it would be often shit talking between from my dad's point of view about my mom, and then my mom trying to be like, "Hey, that's not true. This, that, the other thing." Like it was always something going on that I was trying to navigate through. Um,
Yeah.
But early in high school, I started getting, like I said, some balls and some bravery a little bit, and started pushing back a little bit. And, it felt good, but it ended up, costing me a little bit as well, because that's what you get.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I'll be honest, I kind of lost my train of thought, but
It's okay.
but
It's
yeah,
okay.
that's what Mediator was for me. It was like problem solving, trying to keep both sides cordial,
Yeah.
just so there was some kind of peace that you could hold on to.
Right.
And after a while, I just stopped holding on to that peace between other people and started trying to find it within me. And I was like, this isn't worth it anymore. I don't need to be a mediator for other people's issues.
Right.
So 3 years ago, that's when that happened. 3 or 4 years ago, that's when that happened. Like, I started doing things for myself. Like, I left the situation, and when you leave the situation, it's scary. It's all you ever known. It's all you ever known, and it's scary. It's
Right.
terrifying. But that's when everything began to get better for me. So
Yeah.
it was awesome.
So, okay, so that I feel like there's always a point in somebody's life that either they have like a rock bottom, they have a like, I'm done with this, I can't continue like living this way, whatever it is. So that
Mm-hmm.
sounds like this was kind of like you're like, I got to get out of here. Um, and it seems like even just for the age of 23 and even 4 years ago, you were very, very self-aware of things. I mean, it was obvious that maybe you were in some dysfunctionality, but it just seems like you were so much more self-aware than maybe even most people that age. So what made you no, I don't want to say what made you, but how did you find the courage to leave the situation and know that was the best choice for you?
I'm gonna give two answers. One, I think when I lost weight, like I was 300 pounds through most of high school, like around about, and I'd been struggling with weight loss for a long period of time. And near the tail end of high school, my senior year, I'd finally started like losing weight,
Mhm.
and I was on my weight loss journey. And then the year following my senior year, I'd lost my weight down to the one like weight I wanted, 200 pounds. And going through that was one, like, if you look at the success rate, I don't know what the percentage is, but I know if you can look at like individual stats, so like I lost 100 pounds. If you
Yeah.
compare that to the world in total, that makes me part of the 1% in that category.
Right.
So I started thinking on that, and I'm like, I'm 1%. Maybe not in everything else, but like I'm the 1% that completed the task, that was successful in this. And I think that gave me a little more belief in myself and confidence as far as like what I'm able to accomplish and
Yeah.
do. Like, it didn't make me second guess myself so often. I still did sometimes, but I think that was one big thing. But the other one, and I haven't thought about it since then that much, but it was the hope for the future. Like, so my rock bottom per se was when I finally moved in with my best friend and his
Mhm.
family. I lived in my best friend's basement, if you will. It wasn't even a room, actually. It was a den. There was no doors. There was just three walls and an open area. And I had a bed in the corner and a little dresser cabinet for my clothes. And I remember when I took that step, my friend, I sent him a video of what was going on at the house. And there had been a TV thrown off of the second story deck, clothes thrown out. My dad's girlfriend was crying on the porch, and I was just so numb to everything. I recorded it, and I was like, "Hey, boys, it's a good night, ain't it?" I was just recording everything that had happened, and I sent it to my friend. And I was like, "That's exactly what I said." I was like, "It's a good night," and he said, "Dude, are you okay?" I was like, "I'm fine." I was like, "This is kind of a norm. Just thought I'd show you what kind of night I was having." And he asked me, he was like, "You want to live with me?" And I thought about it, and I was like, "Can I actually do this?" I was like, "I don't know." I said, "Bro, don't play with me, because I swear I'll pack my bags right now." He asked his mom. His mom said, "Yeah." I
Yeah.
packed my bags right then, and I left. I left. Didn't know what was gonna happen. Didn't know what I was gonna do. But I was like, "Hey, it's my buddy. So let's see what happens." And it took 3 weeks for my dad to notice I was even gone. Yeah, it's strange. Like, he just didn't understand it because I wasn't at the house often anyways.
Right.
But I remember that, and as soon as I walked in those doors at my best friend's house, something just happened, and I just started crying. I hugged him, and I broke down and started crying, and he just patted me on the back. He's like, "You're gonna be okay. Like, we're gonna get through this." He's not very emotional, but like, he's not an emotional dude, but he's just telling me like, we're gonna be good. Like, it's gonna be all good. And I lived there for 6 months, and I ended up moving back in with my dad because he had changed evidently. And I moved back in, and it didn't change, not for long. And this is the moment I'm trying to build up to. Is I told my dad one night. I walked in there. It was after he was on a bender, and he was passed out. And I walked in there at 3 a.m. into the living room, and I just had a talk with him. I said, "Dad, can I talk to you?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm moving back in with my buddy. I can't do this." And he was like, "I don't see why you got to be dramatic about it. Like, we argue sometimes, but it's not like anything crazy." And I told him, I was like, "You don't understand. I'm going to hate you. You are going to cause me to hate you for the rest of my life. I will resent you until the day one of us dies." I was like, "I don't want that." And that's what I'm trying to get to, is the faith that one day, if I have kids, that my dad may be around. The idea that my dad possibly can get better. And in order to do that, I have to let him do that on his own. And I couldn't stay, because if I stayed, I'd enable the behavior, but also I'd end up resenting him. But if
Yep.
I left, I was at least solving half the problem. I was like, I won't hate him as much. That's a possibility. I won't resent him because I'm not around him to know and be have reoccurring pain continuing to happen.
Right.
And that was that moment, was the idea that maybe he will get better, and maybe it will get better. Like, I'll have a family, and my mama will be there, my dad will be there. They'll all see it unfold, and like, I want that, but I can't have that if I continue to stay in this. And that's
Yeah.
what it was. That was the big turning point for me. Was that before that, but that night, the talk with my dad. That's what that was.
Yeah. And that's huge. And for you to like notice, to first have hope, to notice that also, and to I, okay, so I'm kind of going in circles here. And I want to ask you this because, and so I lost my dad last January, and we did not have a good relationship. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't there. A relationship didn't exist. And I always resented my father for that, because I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me for my dad not to want to be in my life? And it wasn't until somebody brought this to my attention, of me realizing that he obviously had something going on inside of him, like some kind of trauma. He only knew what he knew from his parents, which, from what I hear, my grandpa wasn't great to his kids either. Have you ever thought about that? Like, do you know if your dad's ever went through like something traumatic, or
I'm glad you brought this up, because people have asked me, how do you forgive someone? How do you not hold resentment? And sometimes I don't, like, I know how to answer it, but I hate to answer it because, like, I shouldn't know this. I'm 23. Why do I know this? But it's just something I do. And part of forgiving is figuring out why people do what they do, and realizing it's not all about you. Like, realizing that what someone else projects onto you doesn't always mean it's about initially what you did. It's about a reaction to something that happened to them years prior to that,
yep.
or when they were a child. It's instilled into them. And when I was on that whole thing, like, at first, when I was living with my buddy, I hated my dad. Like,
Hmm.
I loved him, but I hated him, and I hated that. I hated that I loved him and hated him. It didn't make
Right.
sense. And I just always asked myself, why me? Why is this happening to me? What did I do? And I don't know what happened over time. I just got tired of asking that. So I started asking, why did it happen? Instead
Hmm.
of why was it to me, but why did it happen in the first place? So I started getting curious, and I knew things a little bit about my dad's childhood.
Yeah.
But if anyone knew anything better, it was my mom. My mom, they got together when he was a teenager. like, or when
Yeah.
she was a teenager, but he was in his early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, let me ask her some things. And she told me some about my grandparents. Both of them they've passed when I
Mm-hmm.
was younger and through high school. But so I started asking her, and she gave me some insight. She said, it wasn't the best. My dad's very money eccentric,
Yeah.
money oriented. The way he shows love is by gifting, like
Mm-hmm.
by buying things, being able to help by giving you money. Doesn't know much about the emotional side of things. And on top of that, he's a narcissist. So it's an interesting dynamic. But I started to realize that, like, if you can just connect the dots, like, let's say, oh, his dad wasn't emotional, or his mom and dad were always focused about money and making money. How did that play into his life? How did that help him raise up into an adult?
Yep.
And now, why is he the way he is? And part of that, like, it's hard to identify what parts of them, like, of people are them and what parts are results of different things.
Yeah.
But that's how I kind of understood that. It's funny. It's the funniest way that I can explain it. It's like my, without going into too much detail, my dad, like, both of his parents have passed. His sister passed away from cirrhosis, like my aunt. And honestly, when you start to kind of take a tally of everything that's happened through someone's life, I looked at myself. I said, well, hell, I'd be an alcoholic too, to be quite honest. Like, that's a lot. Like,
Right.
it's like, you don't want to, like, you want to be like, that's wrong, but also you can't blame someone. Like,
Right.
how else? We're only human, and at some point you got to treat it like so. People make mistakes, and understand that things happen, or things did happen. And if you hold it against them for the rest of their lives, even when they're not still playing the part of the person that ruined your life, you may never have a life with them.
Right.
Like, and that's kind of what helped me stop being so angry, uh, and stop in general. Just stop trying so hard to understand everything and blame myself for it. It didn't make sense. So it takes a little bit just of thought. Like, it takes some
Yeah.
time. It takes some time.
Yeah. But once again, that's just incredible that you even thought about that, because that took me a long time to consider, like, that being an option. I'm like, well, first of all, it's not about me. Second of all, it's probably to do with his past. Um, yeah, there's way more shit going on than just like me not being in his life. And for you to show compassion, um, that's huge. And that takes a lot of courage to do, but so much of that is also for your own well-being, because if you are just in that anger all the time, that's not mentally healthy for you. And I know it ate me alive a lot of times when I could have been spending my energy doing something else, you know?
Yeah.
Um so that's big for you.
Yeah. I wish I could open up my brain and allow people to see just like exactly how it is I go about things. Cause I don't know how to explain it all the time. It's kind of instantaneous. Like, it just happens, and dots start connecting and things start happening, and I start thinking. Um, I'm still working on how to honestly make something that people can actually understand, so that it can be more comprehended by a lot more people to go about it. But I think it does take time. I ain't even gonna lie, like, it takes time, and it takes there's a thing I saw about I think, like, domestic abuse in relationships, and they say most of the time people who are involved in domestic abuse, like, or abusive relationships,
Mhm.
will go back more than twice or more than once. Like, it takes that many times for them to get it through their head that this is not good, and it's going to
Right.
keep happening because I keep showing up. And that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, it's just the love you have for somebody. It blinds every logical bone in your body, every logical sense and nerve. Like, you don't
Right.
comprehend it, so you go back, of course, because the love is there, and in your heart, not in your mind, but in your heart, that it's worth it. It's going
Right.
to be worth it. But sometimes it something clicks, and you don't understand what that is. I don't even understand what the clicking moment is. I don't know how to explain it, but it just clicks and you stop. You just
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So, um, how do I say this? Okay, so you've been on this journey for a couple of years. Is that
Mhm.
correct? When I say this journey, um, do you live at home anymore or no?
No, I live with my brother. Me and him split rent at a house, and my mom actually just moved in with us because of a situation that happened. So she's living with us. But
Okay.
yeah,
Gotcha. So, how long have you been like creating content for TikTok? I like really want to hear how this all came to be. I want to say I've been following you maybe for like 3 or 4 months.
um, so I started right around 2.5 years ago. It's something like that. It's been
Okay.
2.5 years, and I started on TikTok, and my buddy told me about it, and I was like, okay, looks interesting. So I got on there, and I was just fooling around with it, and then I was like, I seen some weight loss vids or videos that were on there, and I
Mhm.
was like, let me post one. I had a crazy transformation. I lost 100 pounds. Let me see. Let me post this. So I posted it, and I got like 50,000 views, and I was like, hey, that's kind of crazy. So I was like, maybe I can post weight loss content. I knew I wanted to do something to help or benefit somebody. I
Yeah.
think that I at least know that much for sure, that that's instilled within me. That is no result of anything else. That is who I am. Like anything I do, I would love to, for the end result, to be people being left off better than when I first met them. Like
Yeah.
that's the goal for me. So that's what I did. I started weight loss content, did it for a couple months, and I got up to 10,000 followers, and I was like, this is crazy. But something wasn't right. Something wasn't right. I was like, but I don't enjoy this. I don't like talking about weight loss. Like it was simple. Like I did the research, I did the work, I ate
Mhm.
what I needed to eat, and I lost the weight. I was like, what, how many more ways can you talk about it? Like you can show
Yeah.
diet plans, you can show workout routines, and I hated it. I don't like working out. I
Nope.
don't. I don't want to record my workouts. I want to leave. Like,
Yeah.
get me out of here. Why would I do this? So I didn't enjoy it. And I was like, well, what else can I talk about? And I started, Steve Harvey had some video where he was talking about the idea of like understanding, what you're good at. He's like, what is it that you already do for free pretty much? What is it that people come to you for and you've never really looked at it as a strength? And that was talking about their problems. I
Yeah.
always wondered why I was like this, like people gravitated towards me to talk about and complain about their problems. And I was like, what is going on? So I thought about it and I was like, am I good at listening? I mean, it has to be. I was like, I'm good at listening, but am I good at giving advice? So I kind of kept that in the back of my mind and kept talking to some friends when they would do it. And I started using it as practice. I
Yeah.
started talking to people for the sake of practice. I was like, let's see. Let's see what I can say. Let's see if I have some good ideas or insight based off of what I've been through. And I started to realize that it was something I did for free already. I was like, I already talk to people about their problems. Why not talk to the world about problems?
Yep.
So let me post content. Let me post my experiences. Let me post different things that I know, at least that I've learned from what I've been through. And at first, I ain't gonna lie, it was cringy. It was awful. It was the most sad videos. I mean, I still made some sad videos, but those were like, my goodness, I hadn't completely gotten over some things. I was still trying to figure out how to be me on the internet because I'm
Yeah.
not good. I'm not good at that. So I was like, well, let's play around with it. And that's how it started. Like I just kept making videos and every time someone would message me, that was like more motivation to keep making some kind of content. I was like, people are hearing it and it actually makes sense. That was the biggest, one of my bigger fears was people would misunderstand or miscomprehend what it is I was saying.
Right.
And when people kind of understood it and they just said it was helping them, uh, in their own way, I realized it doesn't matter if you're understood. It matters if the perspective, like if it's understood from their perspective.
Yes.
I get a lot of messages about relationship problems. My content isn't about relationships. Not usually. No, it's about some fucked up family shit. Like it ain't
Mhm.
nothing about no relationship. It's about that, but people take it and they apply it to themselves.
Yep.
And that's what I started to realize over time. And all of a sudden, I'm here. That's kind of how it all got started. I just kept doing it. I don't know.
It's like I I'm just like amazed by your content because I will literally sit there forever and ever, and I'm the kind of person, and I actually just found there's a girl named Rachel Peterson who's apparently is like the social media queen, like that's what her name is. And she talks about how she doesn't schedule out content because if it's not aligned with what she's feeling, it just doesn't feel right. And that's how I've always been. I want to post as I'm feeling this emotion right now, not posting it for Tuesday and then having to like engage with people then. And so I always like wondered, I'm like, does he just like something pops in his head and he just decides to start talking about it because you have such this like calm presence, you know exactly what you're talking about, where like I'll get tripped up over words and you just keep going and I'm like, "Oh my god." So what does that look like for you?
It looks exactly like what we're doing here. Like it literally is me in my car, and I usually set out some time to either think of stuff. I have a lot of things in my notes app where I'm
Yes.
like if I have a thought and I don't want to make a content on it right then, I want to elaborate on it. So I'll think on the thought to get more of a understanding of what I want to say generally.
Mhm.
Um, and I sometimes it doesn't translate well to video, but most of the time, like I can get what was wanting to say on something out. So that's kind of how it works for me. Is like I'll sit in my car, and usually I'll already have some kind of idea of what I want to post or make, like video
Mhm.
wise. But a lot of the times, videos like ideas just pop in my head, and I'm like, I don't even know why this is going through my head right now, but maybe it's something to talk about, and
Yep.
I'll think about it until I find a reason to talk about it. And also inspiration from other things. Like I'll scroll through TikTok and I might see someone talking about something that maybe I hadn't thought about. Maybe it
Mhm.
was just something that they're using for their experience. And I'm like, now how can I relate what they said to me in my own personal experiences with things that I've been through? I was like, well, let's play around with it a little bit, and I'll play around with it a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah.
But I like keeping it off the top of my head because I find that that's where a lot of the best things are said.
Mhm.
I didn't even mean to. I sound like a poet sometimes. I don't even mean to rhyme. I don't mean to do it. It just happens. But like that's kind of how it happens. Like I just think of stuff and
Yeah.
just think and think and think. It's exhausting sometimes, honestly, but it's just my approach to content creation. Like I don't have to think so much about what to make, because when you've lived it, it's. I mean, it's you.
Yep.
Like it's part of you. Like you have a lot to say, and that's the great thing about the internet is you don't need permission.
Yeah.
With people, I couldn't go to everybody and tell them everything that I say on the internet every time I see them because it would get annoying. But the internet, luckily, people may get annoyed, people may not, but they follow you because of a reason. And
Yeah.
that's what that is. Like I get to talk about whatever it is I want to talk about, what I'm feeling. And that's the
Yeah.
best thing about it.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So while we were talking about him and his TikTok and Instagram, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what it is. Now don't go there yet cuz you guys still have to finish listening to this episode. And if you don't get it now, it will be in the show notes. But for TikTok, if you go to at GZ Terry, Terry, G as in Greg, Z, well, G as in Gage, Z as in Zachary. And then for Instagram, it's GZ Terry official. And I will link those in our show notes so you guys can go and just binge watch all of his awesome content. Um, do you feel that you posting content has helped you heal in a way?
um, I'd say so. I'd say it has some kind of something to do with that. Um, because mainly I used to feel crazy. Uh, about the thoughts that I have. And it's
Mhm.
not like some deep intrusive thoughts, but it's like it's about just the way I view things. And I noticed over time that people just didn't see things similar. Like most people didn't, at least. Like I just they didn't view things the way I did.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, there's something wrong with me. I don't know what's going on. And then I was like, maybe there's not anything wrong with me. So I started posting. And that kind of reassured me that I'm not indeed crazy. I'm just different. Like I just have a different viewpoint on things. I've just been through different things than everybody else. Like, and it kind of just gave me a little more security in who I am, like embracing the weird parts of yourself that you think,
Yes.
but it's different. It's just different than what everybody else is.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that kind of saved me. Honestly, it saved me a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's huge. Like just knowing, okay, I'm not the only one that's thinking these crazy things or whatever. I definitely understand understand what you're saying there.
you mind if I ask a question?
Go for it.
How did you get involved? Like, started with podcasting. Like, how'd that happen?
Yeah. So I'll give you the short version. So okay, I lied. I'm going to give you the long version. So had my daughter whenever I was 16, and then I lost my mom at the age of 25. So my mom was my absolute best friend, my support system. I was a single mom. And so when I lost her for the next 10 years, which would be the last 10 years, I really would not process that trauma that I was going through. So when COVID hit, I was a travel agent. I was not doing anything. Travel shut down and I didn't have a purpose and I like just felt empty in the world. So I was listening to a podcast and somebody said, I found my purpose by looking out into the world and asking myself what made my heart hurt. And so I'm like, is that how you find your purpose? You just look out into the world and ask yourself what makes your heart hurt? I'm like, okay, well, that's an easy one. I know people being alone in their struggle makes their heart hurt, makes my heart hurt. So then what am I going to do about it? I have always loved listening to podcasts, be it Joe Rogan, Jay Shetty, true crime. I will listen to anything and everything. And so what I wanted to do is I've always been good at having conversations with people. I wanted to talk to people that have been through really, really hard things, through trauma, grief, tragedy, and then how they ultimately found their path back to the bright side of life. Because I've lost my mom, I've now lost my dad. I've been through a lot of trauma in my life, and I don't want that to, I want to be on the bright side of life and not let the dark side define me.
That's amazing. That
So
is.
that's how I decided.
Oh, that's really cool though. I kind of like that. Like finding someone's purpose is by looking at like what was it? What hurts their heart?
Yeah, so you like look out into the world. Like it could be as simple as, "Oh my god, I hate like when I see little puppies stranded on the side of the road." Like, okay, so maybe I want to go and to be a vet or something. Like, yeah, I
That's
think it's a
interesting.
great way.
Yeah, I heard a thing you were talking about the purpose, like your purpose overall, and I'm more like as far as understanding. Like I'm not a big fan of raw type motivation, like people screaming and stuff. It's
Mhm.
never been my thing. I'm more of having conversation and trying to understand a point.
Yeah.
And there is some kind of TED talk or something. This guy was just giving a speech, and he was talking about the idea of purpose. And he said, "People tell you find your purpose. Like, what are you, what are you good at? What are you destined for?" And he was like, he was bringing up a bunch of charts with studies and stuff, and he mentioned he was like, how true is it that our purpose is not something that we find, but it's something that is already instilled within us, and it's something that was instilled within us by what we had, like what we were when we were kids. So, for example, like if you didn't have a great childhood, like I mean, even me, like didn't have the best childhood. What was something that was a necessity for me? Well, survival. Survival was one. And then the next thing was I never liked other people to feel as bad as I felt.
That was me.
So how true is it that our purpose is not something that you're in search of, but you already have.
Yes.
You just don't see it as something of value.
Yeah.
I think that's it blown my mind. I was like, hey, that's interesting. Like that's something.
Yeah. That literally is me. I can remember way back from to a little girl to high school, I absolutely hated people feeling left out. Whether that was like literally left out, like they weren't the popular person and so you couldn't talk to them, or being left out because they were poor. Cause like I grew up in a trailer, so I didn't have money. That was one of
Yeah.
me. I didn't like people feeling alone and left out. And so I always made it a point to be nice to people that didn't that people might have judged. And so even now, like if I ever go to a place, an event or anything, and people are like, I don't know, they'll say something that is definitely showing their insecurity. I'm always that person to be like, do not feel that way. Like, we're all here. Like, say it's, I feel silly dancing. Like, I will immediately try to make them feel comfortable, being like, we're all looking like idiots dancing right now. Um, I definitely think it's instilled within us. We just have to reflect on it and look, you know?
That's what's interesting as well, is like you were mentioning having people not feel left out, so you'll make the effort. Like that explains me a little bit to a T. But the craziest thing is like if you do it on the reverse, whenever I'm feeling insecure or upset about something, I won't mention it. Like I won't talk
Yeah.
about it, and and it may stop me from doing things. And that's what's interesting is like to this day there are still moments where I feel insecure and I lack reassurance from a lot of people. I give the impression that I'm okay most of the time, and I don't
Yeah.
like talking about it when I'm not okay because it's like they won't understand. And people, it's awful to say for me personally, but anytime I've talked to people about stuff that's going on in my head, it makes it worse. It makes it worse. So it's like, let me see how much I can do to figure it out. And I find it interesting that so much that you want to not have people feel left out, but you're so like you're used to being feel like left out,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
that's part of the whole purpose is already instilled within you. Like it's part of just you. It's
Yeah.
something that you had to build upon or that was built upon over time.
Yep. I'm curious to know when if you can find that TED Talk, let me know because I would love to watch that for sure.
Yeah, it was like a TikTok video, and I would like to listen to the actual whole thing,
Yeah.
the whole talk. But I think I have it saved, or I liked it one. I think it's somewhere through that library, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll definitely go on the search for it, and I'll if I find it, I'm gonna send it over to you.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
awesome.
Just a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
If you if you had to look like on these past 3 or 4 years, what would you be what have you learned the most about yourself? We'll start there.
Over the past 3 or 4 years,
Like when your life has really turned around and you've yeah.
huh? What have I learned the most about myself? I'm like a cockroach. I ain't gonna lie. Like, bruh, it's just you can't take me out. Like, you can't kill me. You can't like there's part of it's sad. Part of it's sad because it's like I'm so not numb per se, but I've you take so many hits after a while. Well, you don't feel them anymore,
Yeah.
and it's like I'm so kind of numb or accustomed or used to emotional damage, emotional pain that and no matter what kind of things come my way for the most part, it's just like it's not going to be enough to deter me. Like
Yeah.
I've realized that like if I set my mind to something and the purpose is there, like if it makes enough sense to me to go after it, there's not going to be one single thing that's actually going to take me off of that. Like whether I take a little break because something happened because life happens, I'm
Right.
going to hop back on that road and I'm going to keep traveling it. Like
Yeah.
I think I've learned that because I didn't expect to have 700 and some thousand followers, honestly. Not even close. Didn't expect to be on Instagram and have so many people like engaging with my content. I didn't expect to get paid for content. These
Right.
were thoughts I had years ago where I was like, that'd be really cool if that happened, but the chances of it happening, like it's not in your favor. But why don't we try it anyways and see how much we can actually accomplish here? That's kind of I love that idea is to
Yeah.
see how far you can take it. Like just see what you're made of. See how far you can take an idea or take your words or whatever it is you're doing. I think I've realized that is like I'm a hell of a lot stronger than I ever give myself credit for.
Yes.
I'll take that.
I love that. You're like,
Yeah.
let me just see what I can do because like before before I started my podcast, I really like struggled with like self-worth and stuff because I didn't have my number one supporter. And so I didn't think that, first of all, I was worthy of any kind of success or anything like that. And so
Mhm.
that's like, since my podcast started, I've been on this whole healing journey. And I just think it's awesome that you are just like, let me just see where I can go. Like, because believing in yourself is going to take you way further than other people like believing in you. That's huge.
What's even greater, like what's like just to add on to that, is when you start just seeing how far you can take something, the more that you actually see progress and the more you start. I heard it like probably a couple months ago. My cousin actually said it. It's like keep the promises you make to yourself. Like once you actually start going through with what you say and you notice it, you're like, did I actually do that? Like that's crazy. You start building up confidence. Like
Yes.
the it can start to be a little scary when you have back to back to back failures and you're like nothing's panning out, nothing's working, but you have to have faith that something is like it's eventually gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
eventually gonna happen. No, like I've had, oh Lord, I've had so many things that I've done. I've ran businesses, I've had clothing websites, all of them flopped, every single one of them. And I was like, well, on to the next one. I guess that ain't meant to be, is it? So I was like, let's see what else I can do. And I learned a lot by
Yeah.
just keeping on. You just
Yep.
keep on keeping on. Is that what it is?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. One of the best quotes I've ever heard, and it was told to me last year by a good friend, Tim. He said, fail forward. Like, just keep failing because if you are so scared of failing, you're just going to stay in the same spot. But if you try that thing and you fail, okay, well, now you know how to do it better or not to do it that way next time. And then the next time you're going to try something. Okay, you might fail, but now you've gained just a little bit more knowledge about that. And then you just keep doing that. And I'm like, oh my God, because that's where I was. I was so scared of like failing. And now I'm just like, fuck it, let's fail. Come on. Cause then that's just going to get us closer to the thing we want to do.
Yeah. Something I did in silence, like it was probably just because I didn't want people to know.
Mm-hmm.
So I built these websites like for apparel and like drop shipping stores, and I started a
Yeah.
landscaping business. I didn't really tell nobody about it, and the only reason why is because like I was like I want to see how far I can do it without having to tell people, and also I would have just preferred not to hear people's mouth about it. I just prefer not to hear their opinion.
Yeah.
So let me just be quiet about it. I didn't tell anybody I had TikTok until I had I think over 100,000 followers. I still didn't willingly tell people. They found me through TikTok, like
Yeah.
my friends and stuff. They're like, "Bro, why didn't you tell me you had a following?" I said, "Hey, I don't know, man. I was just vibing, wasn't it? Like that's what it is." But the idea of failing forward, I like that. But the thing is, I think people get so stuck when they do fail. They focus so much on the negative. They're like, "I failed. I am a failure."
Yep.
Embrace it. We are all
Yep.
failures. And the
Yep.
thing is failing, you're failing forward regardless or not. Like you have to think about it that way. Like switch the mindset of I failed, I'm not going to try anything again to I failed, what did I learn? I
Yes.
failed, what's next? Like I realized through doing the websites and stuff, I'm not an analytical person. I don't like numbers. I cannot stand numbers. I don't like running ads on Facebook because it requires a lot of numbers and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things like to look at numbers and you have to sit behind a computer. I hated it. And that's
Yep.
what I learned. So moving forward, that was a failure, but moving forward, it helped me succeed. It gave me a
Absolutely.
learning point. It's all just learning and knowledge. Like
Yep.
failing is not fun, but you'll realize why it happened later on.
Yes. So let that be your lesson, guys. Go out there and freaking fail and then come back and tell us what you learned.
They're gonna come back and just crying like I failed at everything.
I know.
So what do you want? What do I do? Keep failing. Oh no. Okay.
You'll be like, you're the worst advice person ever.
That
Be
y'all
like,
are awful.
yeah. Oh my gosh. That is so hilarious. Okay. If you could give advice to somebody that's 23, has a similar story to you, but hasn't quite made the moves yet, in terms of, they might lack self worth, they might not believe in themselves, they might have the courage. What would be the advice you would give to them today?
to gain more of that, like to get just in a better spot overall.
Yeah, like say they're stuck at home with, like parents that might not be the best, or, alcoholism or dysfunctionality or anything, they're just like, I got to get out of this. What would you say to them?
I would say take the leap, honestly. Um, it's scary, except it's going to be scary, except that it's possible every bad thought that you have had that may happen will happen. It is possible. You run that risk when you take the risk. Like that's part of it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Nothing is guaranteed. Yeah, if you think you're going to always be sad or depressed or in a bad spot or destined for heartbreaks and just awful things, nothing is guaranteed. Not one single thing. There is always a solution to problems. There is always a solution. You may not know it now, but you keep trying to, it's like busting down a wall. You keep hitting at that same spot, the wall is going to eventually collapse. You just have to be willing to keep hitting the spot and not give up on it. But I think those are some things, and honestly, gain experience. That's probably the biggest thing I think that has helped me overall, and just finding who I am. Like
Yeah.
one, you got to get out of the situation, but two, gain experience as much as you can. Like I've had I've had 18 jobs, traditional jobs. I've had 18 jobs. I've been to interviews and interviews and interviews, and I don't like working for people. That's just me.
Yep.
But it gave me something to go off of to learn about myself. When you're stuck in a childhood loop of who you were supposed to be based off of what your parents said or people when you were young, what they said to you, when you've lived in that for so long, you don't know exactly what's going on. You don't know who you are. So you
Yeah.
have to be willing to try things, even though you may think they're not going to be beneficial. They may be uncomfortable. I don't like that. No, the person like the person that they created you to be doesn't like that.
Yeah.
You don't know if you actually like it or not. Have you ever even done it? It's like your parents didn't like going hiking.
Mhm.
Did you ever give it a second to think that you might?
Yep.
There's just so much to learn about yourself, and don't be scared to try things, even if you think they're not beneficial. If you've never tried it, don't say you don't like it. That's it. That's what I will say. If you never tried it, don't say you don't like it, damn it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, before I ask you my last question, is there
Mhm.
anything that you want to talk about or you want to say before I do ask you my last question that we maybe didn't cover that you want to talk about?
I'll be honest, my brain's moving at 1,000 miles right now. To sit down and try and stop it for a second to grab a thought. Oh Lord, it's too much. It come out in jumbles. It just come out in a ramble, and people be like, "Who the hell is he talking to?" I'm like, I don't know at this point. Four of you, five. I
Oh
don't
my
know.
gosh.
Yeah, so I think I'm good. I think I'm okay, but
Perfect.
I think I'm good.
Well, you've done great, and you just have one more question, and then you can be out of the hot seat. I ask all of my guests this. Gage, in your own words, what does the bright side of life mean to you?
I was about to be like, you mean this podcast? But are you talking about the term
Yep.
bright side of life? To me, that when I hear it, it's just perspective. It's perspective. There is no light without the dark. And to be able to focus on the bright, you have to be able to go through the dark. The bright side of life podcast, the bright side of life in general, there is a bright and there is a dark. Most of the people who are listening or who even listen to just the general podcasts about improving your life or getting better, you're in the dark. You're in the dark. And to be able to get to the bright side, you have to be willing to fight the dark, face it. I think it's about perseverance. I think it's about struggling and accepting it, taking responsibility and accountability for your life and being like, by all glory to God, I'm getting to that bright side. I am going there. And then you'll have more perspective than you could have imagined. You've been to the dark, you've experienced the light. Now you know about both. I think that's all of life.
Oh, that is such a great answer.
Thank you.
That was so good. So good. Okay, I just realized on your thing it says Zachary Terry. Whatever.
It's
Gage.
just,
His name
yeah.
is Gage. It's fine.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on here to share all of your knowledge. Guys, please go check out his stuff on TikTok, on Instagram, on both. His content is so incredible, and I promise you, swear to God, like even if you watch just 3 of his videos, you're going to gain some kind of insight. He is just so relatable and it's awesome. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Gassing me up before we get off here, man. Make me want to run a mile right now. Like,
Go back into the gym.
go back into the gym, take a round 2. My goodness. I
Oh my
appreciate it though. Thank you.